CMV zombie apocalypses would not end civilization. Even accepting most the premises of the typical zombie apocalypse fiction, zombies don't rot away and remain dangerous. Somehow the infection spreads fast enough to collapse societies. The maintenance of post-apocalyptic conditions is unsustainable. The post-apocalyptic scenario is basically that humanity cannot regroup and rebuild because it's too dangerous out there, the infected are too many, etc. However, 19th-century military technology and tactics were enough to enact genocide on entire populations of armed and intelligent people. As Engels said, "The era of the war of barricades is over." There is absolutely no way an unarmed population can survive full confrontation with armed people. If as little as a few hundred people gather in an armed town and they have guns and ammunition, they can eventually clean up an area as big as a city. Given time and a lot of psychological trauma, it's quite straightforward for 50 million remaining people to kill most of 8 billion zombies. An overstatement? Absolutely not. 50 million people is 0.6 of the world's population. That's more advantageous than the difference between the active U.S. military men, about 500,000, and the U.S. population 334 miles. If U.S. militaries wanted to wipe out every other living being in the U.S., unconcerned with the political elements of war, they could, and the civilian population would simply have no chance. It's even easier to kill zombies with modern tactics and equipment. Not only that, but the collapse would necessarily have different degrees in different places, depending on terrain and population density. So even if we accept London and Paris become a mass walking grave in a single week, why would it happen to every village and town in the world? And the military of every country in the world is well prepared to engage in logistics and tactics in its less populated regions. So there could be no such thing as a permanent zombie apocalypse. CMV. The irony is we have no idea how zombies would actually work. The science is never really addressed in most modern fictions. A virus does X to reanimate a corpse, but we have zero idea how it impacts the wider environment. If the zombie virus doesn't anything to damage the ecosystem or cause health issues within living human populations, we are gone. I think you're forgetting the number of people who are going to be called into work despite the outbreak. Slow zombies? Sure. Burn the dead and we're good. Fast zombies? Were you alive during COVID? We'd have enough deniers that would sabotage any attempts to contain the zombie apocalypse that society would crumble within days or weeks. By the way, if the military is wholesale slaughtering the civilian population, even if to contain the zombies, that would be by most people's reckoning an end to civilization. I feel like also a lot of zombie fiction relies on people being idiots and making mistakes colossal enough to level a city. Isn't the definition of apocalypse that it is the downfall of everything? If an apocalypse of any kind happens, it by definition would end the world as we know it. But that's just grammar, I suppose. Would you have to end civilization worldwide to end civilization? Can't civilizations end just locally? Eventually they would repopulate, but I'd argue that it wouldn't look exactly the same. Oh, and it's apocalypse with a Y. This clearly depends on the nature of how it unfolded. There are smart zombies, dumb zombies, fast-moving zombies, slow-movie zombies, zombies that only transmit with bite, other than transmit other ways that are more insidious. Some that change after death, some that change immediately, progressively, etc. You'd have to model each scenario with a sort of public health scenario that included the model of infection and transmission. Is it airborne? Is it bite only? How long does it take to be convert? What does it take to kill it? There has been an explosion in the last 20 years in the variants of zombies. In the Walking Dead franchise, if I remember correctly, every person is already infected and will turn upon death. That means every single person will eventually become a zombie. How can society maintain itself when zombies are impossible to eradicate? Prepared to engage in logistics. How exactly? You cannot engage in logistics when every production chain is cut. I'm not sure if someone has mentioned this yet, but human v human warfare is different than human v zombie warfare in that zombie victory would experience exponential growth. When a human is killed in reality, there is one less player on the field. When a person is bitten by a zombie, there is one more zombie and one less person. 19th century military technology and tactics were enough to enact genocide on entire populations of armed and intelligent people. Easier to kill the living than the dead. Everyone that died from here on out would also be a zombie. If we are taking Walking Dead logic, we would never be able to get rid of them permanently because they would spawn every time someone dies. You're assuming everyone would acknowledge the threat. If US militaries wanted to wipe out every other living being in the US, unconcerned with the political elements of war, they could, and the civilian population would simply have no chance. A military response depends on who's in the White House. Maybe the army wipes out the zombies. Maybe it only wipes out zombies in states that voted for them. Maybe they think the threat is overblown. Maybe it's their second term and they're sure they personally will be okay. Monster stories are not meant to be taken literally. They are symbolic works that speak to our deep fears. Zombies can be coded for various things: fear of foreigners, fear of the lower class, fear of media mind control. The truth is that all the fears reflected in zombie films are reflections, in a fictionalized, symbolic form, of forces that already exist in our world. Taking such symbolic cultural items literally and considering the possibility of a real zombie event is simply missing the point. You have already been infected, probably in multiple ways. If not you, then your family members, your neighbors. Time is running out. So glad this topic wasn't posted in a legit emergency preparedness subreddit. The problem I see with zombies is that if it transmit by bite, it would have been stopped immediately, but in movies it's often not airborne, which is the only way for it to turn that many. Not sure if the military can hold out forever against airborne infection. Zombies are vastly overrated as antagonists, but they are really cheap to costume. That is the only reason there are so many zombie movies. The reality of the US is that there are just too many guns. People would catch on quick enough and put them down. One crazy redneck in a water tower could clean up a whole city by himself with a little time. What you should fear are triffids. But those are a lot more expensive to do effects for. So we haven't gotten any good triffid movies. If the disease that turned people into zombies was airborne and there was no way of treating it or being immune, then it could wipe out everyone. The way COVID spread and killed so many PPL, and the amount of PPL who didn't take it serious, say to me, if a zombie outbreak was real, we're all doomed. Well, it depends on the movie. They all have their own type of zombies. In The Walking Dead, everyone becomes a zombie when they die. So I think it's pretty realistic what happened there. In 28 Days Later, zombies or fast zombies is game over for humanity. In World War Z, the book, you have slow zombies who turn through a virus, and in that book, civilization does not collapse.